Welcome to another episode of Shift Always Happens. I'm Kat Vi, and I'm excited to talk to you about something I've been thinking about. It's kind of like if a tree falls in a forest and no one hears it, did it really make a sound? And today's topic is if someone says you're old, do you have to believe them? Getting older chronologically is inevitable. That's just the way life is. You were born at a certain time and then you keep moving forward. For example, I'm 60, but a lot of people with regards to growing old, I think it's more mindset driven. So you have the chronological age, but you also have the mindset around growing older. So again, I'm 60, but a lot of people sometimes when they see me, they say, "Oh, you don't look 60. You look around 40." And I usually say, "Well, I'm 60, so maybe this is how 60 looks." Or, at least for me. So I think it's important for us to disconnect our chronological age, excuse me, and our belief about age. So if you disconnect them, then one does not have to necessarily mean that it affects the other. So what do I mean? So just because you're a chronological age, 60, 70, 80, doesn't mean that you have to believe what other people say in their minds, what those ages are supposed to be like. Like I'm not supposed to look like I look. I'm supposed to start letting my hair grow gray. I'm supposed to love my wrinkles and let them happen. And it's not that I um, have anything against wrinkles because I do. I don't look like I looked like when I was 20. I don't look like I looked when I was 30 and 40 and so on. I have had changes to my face because there's a natural progression. However, I do take care of my skin and I do watch what I eat and I do take care of myself because I have goals. And when I look in the mirror, I want to recognize myself, but that's just me. And those are my beliefs. So there are studies that show that how you think about age, good or bad, can affect your longevity, either good or bad, or plus or minus by about 8 years. So it really shows that how you think about aging and how you think people should behave is how you will begin to age. Because there's another study that says once you assign yourself that you're old. If you say, "Okay, I'm old. I'm an old person now," your brain kicks in and starts to send signals to your body that you are in fact old, and that could be at any time in your life. So, how you're thinking about it actually tells your brain how to behave. So, separating the chronological age and your belief about age and your mindset about age, I believe is so important. Um, because one of the things you may want to do is you have to say to yourself, how am I going to continue to thrive and move forward if I'm 70 or 80 and so on? You have to kind of step back and assess yourself, and you have to say, am I having trouble walking? Am I having trouble sleeping? Am I not moving the way I want to move? And all of these things, you kind of make a checklist, and then you say, okay, I have to go to the doctor for something, and then what can I do personally or specifically to help myself along? So if you're having trouble walking and it's not lymphedema or something else that's actually physically stopping you. Maybe you have to start walking again and putting that into your exercise program so your legs can start to become stronger. If you feel like your memory is not as sharp as it used to be, then again, always talk to your doctor, but then take the vitamins that are out there and available that helps with your memory, again with strength and when you're learning things, right? Are you not, if you're not aware of the new technologies, it's not because you're old, it's because maybe you haven't learned them and you have to just learn what's happening out there. Because the interesting thing is that when people think of a good life well lived, they think of a long life, right? They say people, when they all, everybody wants to live a long life. But for some reason, we're not supposed to grow old. And so there's that makes that's a problem, right? Because you want to live long, you're going to get old. The question is, how do you get old? How do you decide to get old? And how do you start to think about how you're talking about getting old? How are you contributing to the ageism that exists? Because, the whole thing about when people are talking and making fun of people as they get older, that's a whole level of ageism that we need to correct, and especially in the workplace. I remember working in an organization, and this was against an older man. He was 55. The man was about 55, and he dyed his hair. And the younger salespeople would just make fun of him because he was dyeing his hair, and they would call him old, call him old. I think he eventually took some action against that organization, and they stopped doing that. But that's the thing. We cannot contribute to that narrative in that conversation where people keep talking about old is bad. So if someone says that you're old, you have to correct them immediately. You have to tell them, maybe you're old, I'm not old, I'm just the age that I am. And once you correct them and you don't fall into the trap of agreeing with them that old is bad, it changes the dynamic, which means that you have to watch how you talk about being old. Don't talk about senior moments. Don't talk about, senior moments if you forget something. Don't talk about not knowing technology because you're old. Don't talk about not being able to run a marathon because you're old. It's just because you've had changes in your life that maybe you can't do certain things, but other things you can do very well. So you really have to think about the belief of old differently. It's just a time in your life you can continue to contribute and to thrive and to do what you want to do. Maybe you have to do things a little differently, but you can continue to do them. So you don't have to buy into the whole concept. If someone calls you old, suddenly you're old. You get to correct them. You get to tell them whatever it is that you want to tell them about you and your age, and you just have to focus on how you decide to grow old, because your internal dictionary, to support your desire to have a good long life, has to come with talking about old in a positive way or getting older. That's why I like to say I'm rising in age. And it sounds like a euphemism, but and it is, because I think that as I'm growing, I'm learning new things. My experience matters. The things that the people I've met, the books I've read, the jobs I've worked, the businesses I've started, all these things matter. The places that I've gone to, all these things contribute to making me a well-rounded person that can contribute and share things. So you have to not be embarrassed about your age, because a lot of times people will say, you don't even have to tell people you're 60. You can tell people you're 40 and they'll believe you. My thing is, I am not going to be embarrassed and hide my age, because what I'm doing internally is telling myself that old is bad, it has to be lied about, and I should be ashamed about my number. My number is my number. I'm 60 because I was born in 1963, like all the 1963ers. So I have to just say to myself, how can I continue to show up and be of value and be proud about what I bring forward? It really, really means that I am focused on how my internal definition of being old is. So the question is, again, if someone calls you old, you have to believe them. And the answer is no. But you have to make sure you're not calling yourself old in a negative way, because getting older, there's nothing wrong with that. I call it rising. And how you have your internal dictionary and conversation about old will really decide, or really uh, I would say craft how you're going to come forward and enjoy the time that you have throughout your life. So, thank you so much for joining me today. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on this conversation about when people are calling you old, or you hear people calling other people old, and how it's like a negative thing. But then they're like, when the person dies at 99 and they're like, "Oh, what a great long life," you know? How do you deal with it, and what are your thoughts on it? So make sure to follow me so we could have more discussions, and subscribe to this channel. And I look forward to talking to you more about things that I find out, and my thoughts about rising in age, and how to prevent and stop and thwart the ageism that is maybe putting roadblocks in front of you. So thanks again. I'm Kat Vai, and shift always happens. See you next time.